Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
There's an important term called sarcopenia, and it's the loss of strength and muscle. Now, this, of course, can happen with inactivity, but it's something that's strongly related to aging. In our 40s, if we're inactive and we're not eating enough protein, etc., we tend to lose strength and muscle. And this accelerates a tiny bit in the 50s, but it seems to really take off in our 60s and 70s. And it's a problem, because that age-associated drop in strength leads to poor health. I mean, muscle is needed for survival. Muscle is needed for healing. Muscle is needed for metabolism, controlling your weight, controlling your blood sugar. There are studies showing that older people with a poor grip strength, well, they may not last as long as people who are stronger. And having a poor, unsteady gait is connected to poor health and lower longevity. In fact, a poor gait, that's the way you walk. Like if it's unsteady and slow, that's also connected to falling. And of course, 95% of all hip fractures are related to falling. So not a good thing. So that sarcopenia, that age-related loss of strength and muscle, it leads to eventually frailty. And that frailty leads to disability, and that, of course, that opens the floodgate. All of those diseases related to aging could come flooding into your life. No one can truly tell you why exactly we lose so much muscle with age. But like I said, it takes off in our 60s and 70s. There's probably a lot of causes, maybe genetic. But there's a drop in the activity of certain nutrients, like ubiquinol. Ubiquinol allows you to use calories and oxygen for energy. It's the active version of coenzyme Q10. And also carnitine. Carnitine allows you to use fat for energy. And the enzyme that controls carnitine, it's called carnitine palmitoyl transferase, drops in activity. Of course, you could just take more carnitine and more ubiquinol and make up for these problems. But they are definitely related to mobility, balance, strength, coordination, independence. There's a decline in hormones. Hormones like human growth hormone and growth factors, healing factors like insulin type growth factor 1, and also other hormones like testosterone that are related to muscle and strength. There's a reduced ability to utilize protein. Now that's an important factor. Generally, typical person, 150, 170 pounds, they need about, 60 grams of protein every day. Unless they're extremely physically active, then of course they need a lot more. Now, the problem is when you're older, it's hard to utilize all that protein at once. So I talk to older people sometimes, and I ask them, I talk to older people all the time, but sometimes I'm talking about the way they eat, and I say, when do you get your protein? And they'll say, at lunch I have salmon, or at dinner I have chicken. And I'll say, that's not good, because you're getting like 50 grams of protein all at once, and you're not going to be able to utilize it. Break that in half. Spread it out. It seems that older people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, they can only use about 20 grams of protein effectively and efficiently at one sitting. And by the way, the best time to take a protein supplement, as well as my favorite protein supplement, whey protein would be my favorite because it has all 9 essential amino acids, and it has a really good concentration of branched chain amino acids that are very good for muscle health, for muscle protein. But also because it's so high in protein, it's like a perfect protein. And the best time to take whey would be after a meal, because you don't want to interfere with your appetite, or right after exercise. Right after exercise, because your muscle fibers open up, and it's easier to get the protein into the muscle fibers right after exercise. So older people have trouble utilizing protein. You have to spread out their protein intake. Reduce quality of diet and a lower intake of calories. That's frequent with older people, especially if they're losing their sense of taste and smell. Inactivity, of course, if you're inactive, you're going to lose muscle. I mean, that's going to happen to anybody. It could be a 10-year-old. But there's also and definitely age-related changes to your muscle. And it's reversible to a degree. Like I said, split your protein intake, use the whey protein additional to what's in your diet. Exercise. It works even in your 90s. Let me tell you about my stepfather, Papa Willie. Now, I've been giving him vitamin D and recommending exercise for him for a long time. What happened, he's going to be 96 in a couple of weeks. What happened, he wasn't exercising. He was becoming very docile. He was just sitting around all day, very passive. He wasn't even watching TV anymore. He was becoming totally inactive. He wasn't talking much, like he wouldn't interact with you. You could see he was getting depressed and a little confused. But also he was becoming unsteady on his feet. Now it's the time of coronavirus, so my mother doesn't have any help coming into the house. My mother herself is 89. So my stepfather was losing a lot of muscle. He was losing his balance, his coordination, because he was not physically active. He was not doing the right thing. And my mother called me and she said, Willie fell in the bathtub this morning. It took me half an hour to get him up. Well, that's no good. So I said, listen, Ma, I've seen you a couple of times before this whole coronavirus thing. Of course, I can't visit them right now. Not until this blows over, right? And I said, you have to get him physical therapy. Talk to his doctor. Have her prescribe a physical therapist to come to the house and show him what exercises to do. Now, I said that's going to be a limited number of times. The new regulations, they'll only allow the physical therapist to come 3 or 4 times. So ask the physical therapist what exercises you should keep up with. She'll be happy to tell you. And watch her, what she does. And when she's gone, you have to do the physical therapy with Willie. So she started the physical therapy with him, and I tell you, there's been such a turnaround. I'm giving him a good dosage of vitamin D every day, vitamin D3, because D2 doesn't seem to work. D3, 3,000 units every morning with his breakfast, because that's very important for muscle function. And the exercises have totally turned this guy around. He's doing so much better. He's so much more pleasant. He communicates with you now. He picks up the phone. He sounds cheery. He sounds more alert. He's more with it. We're having a conversation. He's getting around. He's actually going out to the mailbox and getting the mail. He's going outside and getting the newspaper. He's watching TV again. He's going in the backyard and watering the plants. I mean, it's changed his life. It really, and he's not falling. I mean, that's the thing. Falls are very dangerous in the elderly. They hit their head, it could be all over. But, the more commonly, they break their hip. So exercise and protein intake, really important for fading muscle. Now, the name of this episode is Vitamin D and Fish Oils for Fading Muscle. So let's look at the evidence for vitamin D. You want to use vitamin D3. Several studies show that adults absorb vitamin D3 better than D2, and its effects last longer and they're more profound. And evidence shows that vitamin D3 improves muscle strength in all adults, not just the elderly, but all adults. So here's Baylor University down in Waco, Texas. It's the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. It's a review of various studies. And the first study they looked at, actually 2 studies they looked at, vitamin D2 does not increase strength in athletes. Now, vitamin D2 is the kind of vitamin D you get in mushrooms and vegetables. It's called ergocalciferol. Whenever I make a supplement, I always use vitamin D3, which is called cholecalciferol. So in a review of 2 studies, vitamin D2 did not work. It did not improve strength in athletes, which is not an easy thing to do, improve strength in athletes. They're already in top physical shape, right? But in 4 studies, vitamin D3 does improve strength. In 2 of the studies, there was a good trend where it improved muscle strength 2%, 3%. But in 2 studies, it really improved strength in athletes up to 18%. So here's a meta-analysis. It's from the Journal of Science and Medicine and Sports. It's a review of 7 human clinical trials in people between 18 to 40, both male and female. And they had all levels of fitness. Some of them were just starting to exercise. Some of them were physically active, played tennis, ran, lifted weights, etc. And they found that in 7 human clinical trials. Now, this is a meta-analysis. In a meta-analysis, you're putting together a bunch of quality studies. You're getting a lot more data from a lot more researchers, from a lot more people as subjects in the studies. So that generally tells you if something works or it doesn't work. So they found it works. D3 in 7 studies improves upper body muscle strength. Now, these are people between 18 to 40. They're male, they're female, and they're all levels of fitness. It improves upper body strength, and it improves lower body muscle strength. It's in PLOS 1. It's from the University of Birmingham, which would be in Birmingham, England. Now, the next study is from the journal PLOS 1, which is a great American journal. It's from the University of Birmingham. And they're looking at the level of active vitamin D in your blood. So let me explain that. If you have young, healthy skin, and you're out in the sun for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, the sun interacts with the cholesterol in your skin, and you make a precursor to vitamin D. It's not active yet. It's called 25-hydroxycholecalciferol. This goes into your liver, and it's stored there, and it's released in a measured way, and it lasts in the blood for about 2 weeks. It's very stable. So that's the one that doctors usually look at when they're measuring your vitamin D. They're not looking at the active form. I'll explain what that is in a second. They're looking at the form that's stored and released from the liver that still has to be activated. Over time, that form of vitamin D, called 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, goes to the kidneys, and it interacts with the mineral magnesium, and it's activated. Now it's the active form, which is called 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol. The reason doctors don't normally measure that is it's hard to measure because it's unstable and it only lasts in the bloodstream for about an hour. But that's the vitamin D that actually achieves all the things that vitamin D is famous for achieving, like bone health and mental health and immune system function. So in this study, they were looking at the active version of vitamin D. They were testing the blood for vitamin D, and they found that a good level of active vitamin D in the blood is very strongly linked to your muscle power, your velocity when running and moving, how high you could jump, your jump height, lower limb strength in people ranging in age from 20 to 74. Okay, so when they looked in the blood, the active form of vitamin D strongly related to muscle strength, power, performance, and people between the age of 20 to 74. Now, Queen Margaret Hospital is up in Edinburgh, Scotland. And they gave people vitamin D3 supplements, 2,000 units per day. They gave them 2,000 units of vitamin D3 every day. And within 2 weeks, it improved stamina by 30%. So, in other words, some people got vitamin D3, some people got placebo. Then they put them on a cycling test. And within just 2 weeks, it improved their stamina, how far and how fast they could cycle, by 30%. Now, let's discuss vitamin D3 in the elderly. Like I said, this is what I give to my stepfather, but also my mother, of course. You think I'm going to neglect her? This is Trinity College in Dublin, which, it's such a beautiful campus. It's kind of like a botanical garden, because they collect trees from all over the world and they grow them on the property. It's really a beautiful place. It's the Journal of Clinical Interventions in Aging. It's the ELSA study in England. It's a rather famous study. They're looking at almost 4,200 community-dwelling older adults. Community dwelling means they weren't in a nursing home. They were living at home. So they were independent. They were mobile. These people are 60 years of age or older, and they looked at the blood level of vitamin D. And if an older person, a person 60 years of age or older, had low levels of vitamin D, they were twice as likely to have weak muscles. Because there's no doubt about it. Vitamin D is connected to muscle strength. But they were also 3 times as likely to have poor muscle function. like poor balance, poor coordination, weak grip strength. So higher blood levels of vitamin D in the elderly is connected to more successful aging, strength, function, balance, your gait, how you walk. So it's going to reduce your risk of falling. It's going to reduce your risk of becoming frail, developing frailty syndrome. It's going to reduce your risk of fractures because they're strongly connected to falling in the elderly. And it helps improve your odds of aging well, of staying independent and staying at home. Now, there's two very important studies that were published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. It was on 349 elderly men and women. And lacking vitamin D was strongly associated with inability to climb the stairs. I mean, they just had trouble functioning. Their physical function was terrible. Lacking vitamin D in older people, difficulty in climbing stairs, more likely to fall, more frequent falls, poor muscle strength in their hands, bad sign. Poor grip strength, bad sign. In a separate study in elderly men, in a separate study in elderly women, giving them vitamin D3 supplementation over 6 months improved their knee strength and how far they could walk successfully and comfortably. So there really is something to vitamin D. And here's the last study on vitamin D. It's not that I don't have other studies, but enough already. It's the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And it's older patients with hip fractures. They have a better chance of walking again and staying independent. In other words, not needing a nurse's aid to help them walk, not needing a walker or a cane, if they have sufficient levels of vitamin D in their blood, if their vitamin D was at least 30 in their blood. A much better ability to fully recover from a hip fracture. Now let's discuss fish oils. There's a lot of studies about fish oils in younger athletes, improving their physical function, improving their physicality, but in older people, helping reverse sarcopenia, helping preserve their muscle, helping prevent the breakdown of muscle. They don't know why fish oils do this. For one thing, fish oils are needed for the function of prostaglandins that are involved with muscles and bones and joints and ligaments and tendons. It's a type of froggy-looking hormone. And for one thing, fish oils reduce inflammation. So that might be part of it, because I'm sure part of the reason why older people like myself lose muscle is due to inflammation. So I take a bunch of steps to prevent inflammation in my muscles. That's why, by the way, eating vegetables and also drinking green tea is connected to a lower risk of losing muscle as you grow older. They help prevent frailty syndrome because they reduce inflammation in the muscles. That's part of it. There's got to be more to it than that, but that's part of it. But fish oils also make plasmalogens. Plasmalogens are these very complex substances that act like a bulletproof vest for tissues. And there is a certain amount of plasmalogens in your muscles, and fish oils do decline. The concentration of fish oils do decline throughout your body as you age. There's less in your brain, there's less in your eyes, there's less in your heart, there's less in your muscles. So there might be a number of reasons why fish oils help you preserve your muscle strength and your muscle function and your muscle size with age. There's probably a number of reasons. So now we're going to discuss fish oils and muscle health in the elderly. This is Washington University School of Medicine, which is in St. Louis. And they're looking at both men and women aged 60 to 85. And they supplemented them with fish oils or placebo. Corn oil functioned as the placebo. So they gave them fish oils or corn oil every day for 6 months. It improved their thigh muscle size by almost 4%. I mean, normally they lose thigh muscle size. They gained thigh muscle size by 4%. It improved their hand grip strength by almost 6 pounds. That's beautiful. And it increased their peak muscle strength by 4%, like the most weight they can move. Now, in a separate study, it was the University of Glasgow in Scotland, along with Washington University School of Medicine. They reviewed human clinical trials on fish oils and aging muscle. Here's what they found. This is the results of several recent studies that were grouped together in a meta-analysis. Fish oil supplements increase the rate of muscle formation and the amount of muscle formation in aging people. It improves the muscle strength And it secures the muscle function. So it's not just that they're getting stronger, but they can actually use the muscle for balance and moving and opening those jars of jam that get so hard to open as you get older. Even if they're sedentary, see, this is the weird thing. Even when they were sedentary, giving them fish oils improved muscle health and improved muscle size and improved muscle strength and improved physical function. So there's something to it. But it also added on to the benefits of exercise. We see a couple of things doing that. If you add like green tea to exercise, or if you add fish oils to exercise, you get more out of the exercise for burning fat, for building strength, for building muscle, for boosting function and balance, and for building bone. So it's a win-win-win situation. So thank you so much for listening.